Hi, my dear friends. Today, I am starting my political and economical interview. But first, we'll start from politics because we have now Russian invasion in Ukraine, and I very much appreciate today our guest, Andreas Umland, who is analyst for Stockholm Center for Eastern European Studies. Yeah. So welcome, Andreas, to our channel, and this for me privilege of speaking with you because you have a wealth of knowledge and insights on the political ground as well on economical ground. As well, I can say that your passion to Ukraine is amazing. That you are, I'm, very much happy that I'm connected with such friend like you. So, and also we have spoken with you earlier on my Ukrainian channel. We have discussed about little bit India, but here I want that Indian know what is really going on now. And as you see that from India, we have not much support. Can you describe what is reason? Why not Ukraine getting much support? Because first you see Kuleba, foreign minister, he has visited there, but he nothing brought from there. I mean, no any diplomatical strength. There is no strength then between Ukraine and India as of now. Then our president met our prime minister during G7. Also, anything strengthened. And then he sent from India came this ambassador for West. You know that, yeah, which guy participated in this summit.
Peace summit.
For peace. So can you describe what is the reason why this is happening? That in Ukraine not getting much support from India in a way that India can make pressure on Russia to stop the war.
Thanks, first of all, for having me again on your channels. It's a great pleasure and big honor for me as well, and I very much appreciate your work from Odessa, and it's incredible that you are there and trying to improve Ukrainian and Indian relations. I guess at the end of the day, you would have to ask Indian experts about why India is not more interested. What I can only say here is the sort of perspective from a political scientist, and why I could imagine from this sort of viewpoint of general geopolitics, world politics, why Ukraine should be important for India, and in fact for every other country in the world, and which is a very, I think, simple fact about Ukraine, that it is an ordinary member of the United Nations. And what is happening now to Ukraine in this war of expansion and of genocide by Russia is happening to an ordinary member country of the organization of the United Nations. And that is very dangerous, I think, for the world order. And sometimes I think people misinterpret this war as being about the liberal world order, about a Western world order, about the US world order or something like that. But what is at stake in Ukraine is not so much Western values or not even democracy and liberalism or something like that. What is at stake is actually the traditional world order. What this war is mainly about is borders, territorial integrity, and political sovereignty, and also the rights of the most elementary rights of human beings, including children who have been deported in large numbers from Ukraine and Russia. And these should be topics, themes that should be of interest to everybody. And it should be For India, something that India is, I would say, interested in preserving the inviolability of borders, territorial integrity, political sovereignty. These are principles that India can support, I suppose, or that children should not be deported. And that is also something that all other countries of the world can support, at least those who don't want to follow Russia's example and don't want to do similar things to their neighbors, what Russia is doing now. Russia has a lot of stories to tell why Russia is allegedly has the right to do what it is doing. But that is the usual story about aggression and expansion and genocide. All aggressors, all expansionist powers of the world, all violators of international law, they have stories to tell about why they do the bad things they do. In fact, a Ukrainian diplomat, Alexander Sherba, he wrote in a book that has appeared in a book series I'm editing that, go to a prison, to an ordinary prison, and ask the murderers, the thieves and so on, why they did what they did. And they all have, or most of them have a story to tell you, and some justification that the victim is actually guilty, that some injustice was done to the murderer, or here to the expansionist power, that this is all about self-defense. That is also an argument that Russia is making. It's actually defending itself. It's not attacking another country. And so I'm actually surprised that so few countries from Asia, from Africa, and from Latin America support Ukraine decisively, although they also depend on the UN order, on the inviolability of borders, on the principle of territorial integrity of states and of political sovereignty of nations. Everybody needs that, not just wants that, but needs that, I would think. But nevertheless, the support for Ukraine is low. And the problem here is simply that if that can be done, what Russia is now doing to Ukraine, then it can be done to any other country of the world. And there will always be some good explanation. The aggressor will always tell some story. The aggressor will say that he or she is just self-defending, that this is done for historical justice, that this is done out of international solidarity. But what we have here is an enormous violation of the very basic principles of international order. And worst of all, this is done by an official nuclear weapon state under the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty. So Russia is explicitly allowed to have nuclear weapons by this Non-Proliferation Treaty, which most countries of the world have signed. And this is done by a permanent member of the UN Security Council with a veto right. And so Russia is using now international law and international organization to expand its territory, to annex regions. Now Putin has actually proposed a peace plan where he is asking Ukraine to hand over more territories than are currently occupied by the Russian army in Ukraine as a precondition for peace. And Russia is deporting children, is torturing people, is massacring people, is bombarding civilian buildings en masse in Russia. And this is all done by one of the foundational members of the United Nations, which Russia is as a permanent Security Council member and an official nuclear weapons state. So this should be of very much of interest to every country, including India, but somehow it isn't. And I have no answer why, really. I see obviously here economic interest, that the current sanctions against Russia by the West are opening economic opportunities for those countries that do not participate in the sanctions regime. but this is a very risky and maybe also very costly behavior if this sort of then economic support for Russia is actually supporting this war, is supporting annexation, is supporting territorial expansion and violation of the most basic rules of international security.
Yeah, thank you, Andreas. Yeah, you are right that here we all not understand why this is happening, but we know one thing that this is historical relationship between India and Russia. And for last, when I come here in 1992, since that time till now, I have not seen that Ukrainian diplomacy any change to make difference in relationship. They are now only trying, but they are not trying in a way to put some interest of India, because there will be collaboration if both way win-win. Yeah, there is economical some interest, but there is no political as of now interest. Therefore, this is a gap in diplomacy of Ukraine. Because
yes.
because Ukraine diplomacy more, they are targeting to Western country, yeah, targeting to Europe. But this is not things that which will much help in this war, because in this war we have to encourage other country also, other nations like Arabian country, yeah, Saudi Arabia, our this presidents many. So tell me what here play role of global South, whether global South able to not facilitate, give some room for peace, that there will be peace, because we have to now, if we think only think about that war going on, so this will never end. Yeah, so there will be any interference from any side.
Yes, I think that is actually Ukraine's problem, that it has with the so-called global partners beyond the traditional Western allies. And that I would agree with you, that is also at least partly a fault of Ukraine, of Ukrainian diplomacy, that there may have been too much focus on Western countries. But I don't think there's any, what behind is not some sort of arrogance or some sort of non-attention, but rather perhaps what I would see here is a certain naivete and a certain misunderstanding, so to say, that Ukraine is secure. Until 2014, people thought Ukraine is, some people thought Ukraine is secure. Other people already saw before 2014, before the war started, that Ukraine needs protection. But then it needed, the focus of Ukrainian diplomacy was very much on NATO, because that was seen as a military actor that could protect Ukraine if it would take in Ukraine. So that's where you have the Ukrainian focus on the West. This focus on the West it's not out of ignorance or out of arrogance or something like that. I think it has a lot to do with Ukrainian fears and a lot to do with a sort of a calculation that the only countries that Ukraine can hope to get help from militarily are Western countries and not countries from the so-called global South. I don't think that is actually an option. Now South Korea has now announced that it may deliver weapons to Ukraine because North Korea is supporting Russia, but that is not yet decided as far as I know. And it has also a lot to do, of course, with the South Korean, North Korean conflict. So it's not something that has actually is that primarily driven by interest, although South Korea has been, I would say, partly an ally of Ukraine. Yeah, so I think, but I agree totally with you that the Ukrainian diplomacy should have earlier and better focused on such countries and India, and then perhaps there would be now also a different relationships. But by the way, I have also criticized Ukrainian diplomacy for not focusing on Eastern Europe enough. So for not, for instance, focusing more on Ukrainian-Polish relations before 2014. Yeah, so because there was then also even even the neighbors of Ukraine are complaining that they do not receive enough attention of Ukraine, because Ukrainian diplomacy very much looks to Washington, to Brussels, to Berlin, London, Paris, but that has a lot to do with Ukrainian fears of the fear of Russia, of an expansionist Russia. And so it's looking for militarily potent allies that may be ready to, and that which are now militarily supporting Ukraine, not with troops, but with weaponry. And so that's why there's this misunderstanding, whereas Russia, on the contrary, sees itself as a global power. And of course, with this paradigm, it pays a lot of attention to India. And then, but that has, I think, also not so much to do with India. It has more to do with Russia's own vision of being a self-sustaining pole in world politics, a Eurasian empire, and India and China and the US, they are sort of the preferred partners for Russia, because these are also big countries or big units, and that's why India gets this attention from Russia. But Russia has now become a very dangerous country for the international world order, from which we all profit. There was another world order before the creation of the United Nations in 1945. Well, there was world disorder, and if we go back now to world disorder with this war, where everybody's only caring for oneself, for your own security, where people and nations across the world will be thinking about getting weapons of mass destruction, because they don't want to end up in Ukraine's shoes. They don't want to be attacked like Ukraine. Then we will be in a much worse world, from which everybody will be worse off, including India.
Yeah. So, Andres, how could stronger economic ties with Ukraine benefit the Indian economy?
I think that this would be definitely something to think about. I'm not an economist, I have to say. From the outside, I'm sort of observing that the Ukrainian economy is far advanced in certain fields where it can cooperate well. This is agriculture, the IT industry, and more also the development of weaponry, of the most advanced weaponry, in fact, that is immediately being examined on the battlefield. So Ukraine, I think, will in the future become a major arms producer and weapons exporter. And Ukraine may also become in the future a country that can sort of provide services in terms of for peacekeeping missions or something like that, because Ukraine is now acquiring a lot of experience with the most advanced weaponry and in a very existential and very ruthless fight with Russia. So that would be something perhaps also that could be in the future important for India. But as a political scientist, I think the strongest factor that should bring together India and Ukraine is the simple fact that they are both democracies, and they have common values, certain values. Not everything is common and not everything is similar, of course, but certain basic things are similar in India and Ukraine. And and also there's now this geopolitical realignment that China is getting closer to Russia. These are two autocracies. China has also geopolitical ambitions. China has a difficult or a complicated, let's call it that way, relationship with India. So what we are seeing now is maybe the emergence of a new Cold War between autocracies and democracies. And then countries will have to decide on which side they are. And I would assume that Ukraine and India will be on the same side at the end.
Yeah. So, Andreas, what you would like to address to Indian people, because this video will be seen by Indian people, they will watch this our interview. So, what you would like to address to how they can strengthen relationship with not only Ukraine, I mean European country, because especially you are from Germany, right? So
Yeah.
from now I observe that Germany, India, there is good relationship.
Yes.
Strengthening more and more because on economical points and as well political, isn't it?
Yes, as far as I know, the relationships are good. I have to admit, I've never been to India, and I really wanted to go.
So you are welcome to India.
Yeah.
When I go there, I'm planning this year by end of year, so you can join me.
Okay. I will keep that in mind. I'm getting more and more interested in India, so I also think that this is
that's great. Yeah, because
Yeah.
it was so. What you would like to address Indian more than 2 billion people near about?
Yeah. I think for Indians, what they and you will of course know that better, is that Ukrainians are a very open people. That's also why they fit rather well into the European Union. They, usually the foreigners. I'm myself a foreigner in Ukraine. I live in Ukraine, but also the other foreigners whom I know from Africa, from Asia, and so on. Most of them like Ukraine because they don't feel much racism or xenophobia or something like that. So the Ukrainians are a very open country, and that's I think what makes it also an appealing country, where one can travel, where one can have friends, and which one can visit, and which one can enjoy also as a foreigner very much. That's why I think also Ukraine has many foreign friends as well. That simply because the people are open and very little xenophobia. There is some, but it's compared to other countries, it's very low indeed. So, and Ukraine, I think, is also a country of the future. I think it will become a member of the European Union. It's now very closely aligned to the United States, to Great Britain, to Japan, to South Korea. So, and it's becoming, I would say, a rather important part of European politics, of Western politics, and I would say of world politics. So it looks like now it's sort of losing the war, and it's under pressure from Russia, and it's under attack, and so on. But I think that is only a very temporary phenomenon. What I see is Ukraine on the winning side, Ukraine entering the European Union, and Ukraine will be co-determining the future of the world with its I would think future victory in this war, but also with setting trends in other fields, and with for instance, influencing how the West of the future will be, because Zelensky has now become a very vocal voice in the West. He's a politician who is heard by many and who has a lot of sympathy across Europe and across America. And so I think having Ukraine as a friend will be also beneficial for other countries, even for such large countries as India.
Yeah, thank you very much, Andres. It was great to have you here. And I will say everyone that thank you for watching us and goodbye and see you again.
Thank you.